Today, we're talking about going to the carrier directly or an agent, a decision that could cost you thousands of dollars if you're a homeowner or if you're a real estate investor. Let's get started. But before we do, make sure to subscribe, share, and like the channel so other people can find the same valuable information in this content that you do. So going carrier direct to agent, what exactly does all this mean? Well, first of all, let's talk about carrier direct. What is carrier direct? What we're talking about here is when you go directly to an insurance company, you decide to buy flood insurance directly through that company. How is that going to impact you? Is it going to impact you at all? You know, these are the questions we get every day from property owners just like yourself, and today we want to answer those questions. So let's talk about it. Let's say you decide to go directly to this carrier. What is that relationship? What does that experience look like? So you call the carrier, maybe you see their ad on Facebook or you see their ad here on YouTube. You decide to click it, start looking at that flood insurance. They help you. They get everything taken care of. Generally, they're looking at that flood insurance. One option for you. That's it with most of these carriers. So you're limiting yourselves right there to one option, whether that be the National Flood Insurance Program. But this is normally a private flood insurance solution that most of these companies are providing. And it's just one solution most of the time. So it means you're down to one solution. What happens when you decide, hey, should I file a claim or not? Are they just going to file this claim for you? Or are they going to explain what the impacts are going to be long-term, short-term? Could this claim stop you from getting flood insurance? Not just with this company, but in general in the private flood insurance market. Because that's the thing with some carriers. They will not insure a property that's ever had a flood insurance claim in certain situations. They will sometimes not insure a property that's had a claim within the last 5 years. So these are all questions you should be asking when you're calling this carrier directly. Hey, how are these things going to impact me if I have to have a claim? Because look, I'm buying insurance so that when a claim does happen, I've got financial protection. It's the whole purpose of insurance. So those are some questions you want to ask the carrier directly here. Hey, what happens if you decide to non-renew my policy? And what exactly does this mean, non-renewal? What this means is when your contract is up with an insurance carrier, generally 12 months is what most flood insurance policies are. They can decide to send you out a renewal letter about 60 days before renewal or not. Now, generally with the National Flood Insurance Program, they don't non-renew policies in 99% of the situations, unless a community is leaving a program or something like that. But with private, they can decide to move out of that area. Maybe they don't want that risk anymore. So what's that process look like for you as a property owner? You know, when you're talking to this carrier directly, you want to ask them about things like claims. You want to ask them about renewal pricing. For example, like, hey, how much is your renewal going to go up? Now, look, that could be next to possible no. But what you want to do is, on average, what percent of rates are going up? Are they going up 30%, 4%? Based on the data you have for your company, can you tell me what's happening there? Then the next thing you want to ask them about is something called flood risk scoring. So what does this flood risk scoring mean? What do you want to know here is, hey, what are the chances of my property actually flooding over a 30-year period from 0 to 100? You know, there's a lot of companies now that are building these rates based on this modeling. Hey, how does flood risk scoring modeling built? Do I have a score of an 80? What does that mean? For example, floodways. How are floodways going to impact that flood risk modeling with that company if you are in one? And what is a floodway? Remember, a floodway is the overflow area of whatever the water source is, whether that's a creek, river, stream. If you decide to build in that area, there's very strict guidelines. And because how companies use things in like flood distance and the type of flooding and their modeling now, floodways can make flood insurance very expensive. So these are all questions you want to ask when you're going directly to that carrier. Now let's get over here and let's talk about agent. What about when working with an agent? What are maybe some of the advantages of going to an agent over the carrier direct? Well, you remember when we talked about that one option? Most agents are not going to have this limitation. They're going to be able to provide you usually an NFIP. Let's try that one more time. I misspelt it. Option. So remember, that's the National Flood Insurance Program. Remember, no matter where you go, if you go to a carrier direct and you decide to write your own policy through the federal government, or you go into an agent, the rate should be the same unless you're taking over somebody's policy. Now let's talk about that claims question we had over here with an agent. Remember, these are conversations you should be having when you purchase insurance. You want to know, hey, what's going to be the short-term and long-term impacts if I decide to file a claim? What should my different deductibles be? Should I file a claim? What are the impacts going to be on my flood insurance in the future? Not just with this company, but overall in the market. And these are questions that an agent probably should be able to advise you better just over the carrier direct. Because remember, whoever's working with you at the carrier represents the carrier. An agent generally represents you. So you just want to remember that. Typically, the agent's going to have more of a neutral approach or look than a carrier directly might. Now, we talked about NFIP and claims and private. So we talked about private. We talked about over here where they probably just had that one option. On the private side, an agent may be able to provide you 5, 10 different private options. Remember, these options could range from $400 to $4,000. So it's very important to understand that you have all your options on the table. Now let's talk back over here to flood risk on the agent side. On this flood risk scoring, the agent once again should be able to provide a score of 0 to 100, explaining, hey, if you're at an 80, here's what the current marketplace looks like with your flood risk modeling. Here's what's available. Here's what's not available. Potentially, here's how your flood risk scoring, good or bad, could change in the future. Now let's talk a little bit about that renewal pricing. So renewals with an agent may be completely different than a carrier. They may only have, hey, here's what our price is going to be at renewal. It is what it is. With an agent, like what we do, when there's a renewal increase over a certain percent, you can automatically go to the marketplace, shop 10, 15 different options. Look at what people are doing in the marketplace. Going directly to the carrier, you may not have that solution. So you want to make sure with working with an agent, ask them, hey, what does your renewal process look like? Are you working just with one carrier? Because if that's the case, you might as well go over to the carrier directly if this agent's only going to represent one option, because the carrier may be able to provide more knowledge there. If my rate increases over a certain percent, are you reshopping it? How many companies are you reshopping it with? What if my policy gets non-renewed? What does that process look like? Because you want to take that process and you want to compare it with the renewal pricing process of it going directly to a carrier. Now, we talked about floodways on the carrier side. It's important to still understand floodways on the agent side, making sure they're explaining to you what kind of impact floodway or distance to water is going to have on your premiums today, tomorrow, 36 months from now. It's one of the reasons here at the Flood Insurance Guru, we really try to focus on helping customers do what's called premium forecasting using flood risk modeling. Hey, I know you can't tell me what my rate's going to be next year or the year after, but could you tell me an idea of what you think is going to happen? Is it going to skyrocket? Is it going to go down? All these different things. And that's where that flood risk score can come into play. And things like floodways and claims can have a big impact on that. So when deciding if you're going to go directly to a carrier, directly to an agent, these are questions you want to have in mind and start asking. And we'll also have this guide down below in our YouTube video. We'll have it on our website in the Learning Center as well, where you can kind of have a guide on questions to ask when purchasing flood insurance, whether you're going directly to a carrier or to an agent. I want to thank you for watching today's video on carrier direct versus using an agent. Remember, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you've got coverage in place to protect your property in that flood zone, whether you're a real estate investor or a homeowner. My name is Chris Green, the Flood Insurance Guru, and I want to say thank you for watching today's video, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button below. Thank you.